If you're a parent of an adult child, worried and frustrated because they are struggling to become independent, responsible, and find purpose in their life, or you want to know what to do to prevent it, you're in the right place. This is Launch, a podcast that helps you guide your adult child to launch confidently into adulthood. I'm Shari Jonas, author, educator, and co-parenting consultant, taking a deep dive into the ongoing challenges that you're faced with as you watch your adult child struggle. Each episode will deliver actionable steps and strategies that you can take to help your young adult become confident, motivated, and self-sufficient. Parents, if you want your adult child to achieve a life of independence, thrive in this world, and reach their full potential, then listen in to Launch. I'm Shari Jonas, and this is Launch. I'm so glad you're here today because we're diving into something that isn't talked about nearly enough, but is an absolute essential life skill, and that is teaching your young adult about money. Now, before you hit pause, because money talk sounds intimidating and you're thinking, I'm not a financial whiz, what do I know about money? I get it. I'm not one either. But here's the thing. You don't need to be a financial expert to teach your young adult how to handle money. In fact, what I'm going to talk to you about today is so basic that you can practice it on your own. Truth is, many of us enter adulthood with absolutely no idea how to manage money. It's not just you or your kid. It's a systemic problem. Schools don't teach this in the academic curriculum. For some reason, they think it's more important to teach our children calculus and geometry than saving and budgeting. And yet, which would be more useful in our day-to-day lives? I haven't used a compass in over 40 years. So I'm going to break this down in a way that's simple, actionable, and most importantly, teachable. By the end of this episode, you'll have one clear method that easily explains how to manage money, plus a realistic plan that they can start using right away. But first, I always like answering the question, why? Why do we need to teach money management to our kids? But this time, instead of stating the obvious, I'll just mention some statistics, which you'll find to be both shocking and comforting. Okay, so according to the National Financial Educators Council, 54%, that's more than half of young adults aged 18 to 34, lack basic financial literacy, which includes understanding budgeting, saving, and managing debt effectively. When asked, only 16% of millennials, that's ages 25 to 34, said they feel confident in their financial literacy skills. That means 84% are not. So if you're thinking that you're not capable of teaching them about money, most of them admit to not knowing much about it anyway. In fact, when high school graduates were asked if they feel prepared to manage their finances, nearly 75% replied no. In a 2022 survey, 76% of 18 to 34-year-olds said they wished they had received more financial education in school. When asked about this lack of knowledge and how it impacts their anxiety levels, 72% report feeling stressed about money, with common concerns being student loans, credit card debt, and the inability to save. As of 2023, approximately 59% of bachelor's degree recipients graduated with student loan debt averaging $30,000, and 40% of them reported struggling to make monthly payments. Well, we've all heard of this, but it's because of all this financial stress. Over 60% of 18 to 34-year-olds have had to delay major life decisions like buying a house, getting married, or starting a family. So you can see that there's a correlation here. Money management is not taught, leaving many young adults financially illiterate and therefore unable to leave the house and go on their own, even if they want to. Which brings me to the next statistic. Nearly 40% of young adults under 25 rely on their parents to cover monthly expenses like rent and utilities. So, clearly, if you want to help your adult child to become independent enough to at least move out, you're going to have to teach them. You are really all your kid has. And listen, I know this topic can feel intimidating because maybe you don't feel like you have all the answers yourself, but you don't need a PhD in economics. You just need to learn this easy method to get them started. And let's not forget, you have taught your young adult so many skills already. You've helped them to walk, talk, brush their teeth, tie their shoelaces, learn how to ride a bike, maybe even a car, hopefully how to cook, make friends, and so on. Teaching them about money is just another step in preparing them for adulthood. Even if it's just the basics, any discussion is going to be better than nothing at all. Now, if you grew up in the same generation as I did, which was in the 60s, then there's a good chance you were raised feral. I joke around about this a lot, but there is truth in jest. I did not have parents who sat me down and talked to me about money. My siblings and I were left on our own to figure out how to save, budget, establish credit, invest. Some of us did okay, and some of us didn't. All I knew was this. My parents were terrible with money. My mother never worked and was completely financially dependent on her husband's, plural, and my dad was always broke. So that's all I needed to see to want to do the exact opposite. I often say that our parents don't have to be positive role models for us to learn from. Obviously, it's easier if they are, but quite often we learn how not to be and what not to do from our parents. So this is how it began for me. When I was around 8 or 9 years of age, my family would ask me what I wanted for a birthday or holiday gift. So I started saying money. I didn't care how much. I didn't want them to buy me things anymore. I wanted to start saving. When I had more dollar bills than my piggy bank could hold, I told my mother I wanted to open up a bank account. When I was 11 years old, I started babysitting. When I turned 12, I got my first job delivering newspapers, and I have never stopped working since. As my bank account grew, I started setting goals for myself. I saved for a stereo system and bought one. I saved for a vacation to Europe and traveled there. I saved for my first car and bought it when I was 19 years old. My motivation for learning about money was because I saw how my mother couldn't buy anything without asking a man. And that made me feel not only sad for her, but I never wanted to be in that situation. Now, maybe you had something in your life that inspired you to want to earn and save. Or maybe you have another child who has this instinct in them. But if one of your children does not seem to know how to do this, then let's make sure they have the skills now. Because teaching your young adult how to manage money isn't just about helping them save for the future. Money means much more than saving or spending. Here's an old story, a fable, if you will, that I heard many years ago and I never forgot it. It really drives this point home, and it's a good story to tell your kid. Let's begin with once upon a time, there was a wise old father who had 3 children. They were grown enough to start making their way in the world, but their father knew they still had much to learn. So one day, he called them all together and handed them each the same amount of money and said, I'm giving you, let's say for argument's sake, $100. Use it however you think best. But in 1 year, I want you to come and show me what you've done with it. The siblings were excited and each set off on their way with their $100 in hand. And what they did with that money couldn't have been more different. The first sibling was so excited to finally have some money that they could hardly wait to spend it. This is my chance to treat myself, they thought. They bought new clothes, went out to eat at their favorite restaurants, even treated their friends. The money felt like freedom, a ticket to enjoy life. But as time passed, the money began to run out. And in the end, this young adult's wallet was empty, and they had nothing left to show for it except a few receipts and memories of fun nights out. We all know those. Let's call the first sibling the spender. The second sibling took a more cautious approach. They thought, I shouldn't spend this money. I need to hold on to it. They found a safe place to keep the $100 and tucked it away. They didn't spend a single dollar of that money. They figured the best way to protect their money was to leave it untouched, so they got a job instead. For the entire year, the money stayed exactly where they had put it. In the end, they still had the $100, but not a penny more. Let's call the second sibling the saver. The third sibling thought carefully about what to do. They wanted to make the money grow, but they weren't sure how. Well, one day while walking through the market, they noticed a farmer selling a young goat. The goat was healthy and could provide milk that could be sold or used to make goat cheese. This sibling decided they're going to spend the $100 on the goat, thinking it was an investment that could grow. Over the year, the goat provided fresh milk every day, which the siblings sold at the market. When they had enough money, they bought a mate for the goat, and it produced babies, and before long they had a small herd. They even started making and selling goat cheese. The sibling used the extra income to buy more supplies, and by the end of the year, the third sibling didn't just have $100. They had a thriving little business, a small herd of goats, and plenty of milk and cheese to enjoy and profit from. We will call the third sibling the investor. After a year, the father called his children back and asked them to share what they had done with their $100. The first sibling shrugged and said, "I spent it all. It was fun while it lasted, but I don't have anything left now." The second sibling proudly presented their $100 bill. "I didn't lose a single cent," they said. "I kept it safe the entire year." Then the third sibling came forward with stories of their goat farm. "I bought a goat that gave me milk and then cheese, which helped me to earn enough to buy more goats. Now I have a thriving business." Well, the father smiled and turned to the first sibling and said, "Spending money isn't wrong," he said, "but if you spend it all, you'll have nothing for the future." To the second sibling, he said, "Saving is wise, but money kept idle cannot grow." And finally, to the third sibling, he said, "You understood the true power of money. It's not just for spending or saving. It's a tool that can work for you and create wealth and opportunities." Each of these siblings' choices reflect the decisions we all make with money. Some of us are spenders, some of us are savers, and some of us invest in ways that allow our money to grow and provide for us in the future. Your young adult should learn to see money as a resource, a tool that they can use to build something that will grow throughout their lifetime. This doesn't mean that they have to start their own business. The point here is that money can be used to make more money. So investing in it in a home or blue chip stocks or even a high interest savings account should be something that they are made aware of. But that's not for today. Today, we're going to get into a simple money management framework, which I call the 3-step money plan, because it focuses on 3 key actionable steps that make up a solid foundation for money management. It's easy to remember and to put into practice, even if you feel intimidated about money. Step 1. This is the 50-30-20 method, and it's all about allocation of funds. You're going to explain to your young adult that every dollar they earn or receive should be divided into 3 categories: needs, wants, and savings, with percentages for each. 50% of their income is allocated to needs. And when I say income, of course, I'm referring to earned income. But when kids are young, this can include allowance or gift money. Now, needs are considered the necessities or the essentials that we can't live without, like rent, groceries, transportation, cell phone, and so on. The next 30% is used for their wants. These are the non-essentials, the fun things like eating out with friends and entertainment and anything that brings us joy. And finally, 20% is put aside for savings or paying off debt. Here's how you explain this in everyday terms. Imagine you earn $100. You'd use $50 for things you need, like food or gas if they drive. $30 will be for things you enjoy, like going to the movies. And the rest is what you save, leaving you $20 for your future. This division, or allocation of funds, enables you to cover your basic needs, enjoy life, and plan ahead, all at the same time. Be sure to make this explanation visual. Write it out or something, or even grab 3 jars or envelopes and label them needs, wants, and savings. Now here's step 2. create a budget together. Here's where you're going to break things down. Like if they don't have a job, by the way, I would strongly suggest that you consider giving them a small allowance because they will never learn about money if they don't have any. And if you're not giving them an allowance, that means they're coming to you every time they need or want something. So this is not teaching them anything. Okay, so now you write down their income, whether that's money earned or an allowance. Then list all of their regular expenses from daily to monthly. And this, by the way, is a great way for them to see how much they are actually spending, even if it's your money. Then use the 50-30-20 rule or method to allocate this income into the 3 categories of needs, wants, and savings. You're going to come across some interesting scenarios, like what if their needs or expenses exceed the 50% limit? You'll have to ask them, what can you do to adjust that? Can you maybe cut back on your wants this month or find ways to earn more money? This concept, by the way, teaches them the need for flexibility and creativity in managing money. When my daughter came to me and said that she was ready to move out, this was the very first thing we had to do. We had to write out all of her living expenses, plus her wants, and then she needed to save a little. It was then that she realized she needed a job, which of course she got. Otherwise, she wasn't moving out. There's step 3. It's called building a savings plan. Because now that they're saving 20% of their money, they'll need to have a goal or goals that excite them. Young adults are more likely to save when they have a clear purpose. So you have to ask them, what's something you really like to save for? A car, a vacation? Determine what the value of that is, and then have them calculate how long it will take to reach their goal by saving 20% of their income. Savings is where a lot of young adults struggle. Actually, it's where a lot of older adults struggle too, because it's sort of hard to think about savings when every dollar feels like it's already spoken for. But it's crucial to start, even if the amount is less than 20% in the beginning, because saving money builds momentum. It does require discipline, which is a good thing, but once they see their savings grow, it becomes a habit that they'll want to stick with. This money management framework really works for parents and their young adults. First, because it's easy to explain. That 50-30-20 rule is not rocket science. Second, it's actionable. Sitting down to create a budget and a savings goal can be done in under 60 minutes, maybe less. And third, it's relatable. Teens and young adults can immediately apply this to their lives, whether it's managing a summer job paycheck or that monthly allowance. Now, if you want a few suggestions as to how to broach the topic and get it started, I'd begin with this. Hey, I think it's about time we talk about how to manage money. And then they go, what money? I'm kidding. Then you say, I know this might seem boring or even confusing, but it's actually really simple. I'm going to show you a way to handle your money so you can pay for your needs, have fun, and still save for the things that you really want later on. It's called the 50-30-20 rule. We'll split your money into 3 categories, needs, wants, and savings. And then we're going to create a quick plan so you know exactly how much money you can spend, save, and enjoy. Let's figure out a savings goal too, something that you're excited about. Once you see how this works, you'll feel way more confident about managing your money. Now, by the way, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but everything I say in my episodes is always available in a transcript, which you can find below. So feel free to look at it after if you need a quick refresher on all the things we're talking about here. Now, what I love about this 3-step approach is that it's flexible and realistic. It teaches young adults how to prioritize without feeling deprived. Plus, it's easy to tweak as their income changes. Here's a few extra tips when you are ready to sit down with your young adult, because let's be honest, they tend to tune us out when they feel like they're being lectured. So the key here is to make this a conversation. Start by sharing your own experiences. So be honest about some of the mistakes that you've made or the things that you wished you had known earlier. For example, you could say, I remember getting my first credit card and thinking, hey, this feels like free money. I know for myself, I didn't know the first thing about those interest charges. So let me tell you, that was a painful lesson for me. Next, ask open-ended questions that would get them more engaged, like, What's something you'd love to save up for? How much do you think you'll need to save to reach that goal? And after you explain this model, ask them what they think about this 50-30-20 method. Does it seem doable? These questions will get them thinking about money in ways they probably never thought of, and also take ownership of their financial journey. Now, you'll notice that in this 3-step plan that I mentioned today, it doesn't include credit or investments, which I cover in my course. But in this episode, I want to keep it easy and actionable. So as we come to a close, I want to remind you that your job isn't to micromanage their finances. It's to guide them and let them start managing it on their own. That means watching them make a few mistakes along the way, but mistakes are often the best teachers. So check in with them regularly, not to critique them, but for support. You could say, hey, how's that budget working for you? Is there anything you want to adjust? This keeps the conversation open and collaborative. I hope you feel comfortable with this approach and that you are ready to sit down with your young adult and go through these 3 steps. Teaching money management is about giving them the tools to take control of their finances. And I want to remind you that this life skill is one of the greatest gifts that you can give them, because it's not just about growing a bank account. It's about building confidence, independence, and setting them up for success. Money touches every part of our lives. Our needs and wants, our social life, career choices, our own experiences, and even our mental and physical well-being. That stress alone of not having money or owing too much of it can be overwhelming. By teaching your young adult the basics of money management, you are giving them a lifelong gift. You're not just preparing them for rent payments or grocery runs. You're setting them up for freedom, security, and the ability to create the life they want. As always, thank you for listening, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or stories to share. I would love to hear how your experience went with this. I'm Shari Jonas, and this is Launch. I hope today's episode gave you valuable insights and actionable steps that will help you guide your young adult to launch successfully into adulthood. If you found this topic helpful, feel free to leave a comment and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Leaving a 5-star review helps us reach more parents who are dealing with the same issues. And if there's something you want to ask me, I invite you to join Launch Advice, my weekly publication where I answer one question from parents just like you. It's free advice that will appear in your inbox probably when you need it the most. Just click Launch Advice in the show notes and don't forget to email me your confidential question. And remember, no one ever said parenting is easy, especially when you're raising an adult. Talk to you soon.